your Kundalini. Awakening has nothing to do with pretty colored lights rising up your spine. Chakras and energy flowing through your microcosmic orbit could represent lights. And I won't discount someone's experience, but much of the yearning and desire to see colors keeps you spiritually sedated, while the real power sleeps at your core. Kundalini represents raw, untamed consciousness, the primordial fire that creates and destroys universe, coiled at the base of your spine. Not metaphorically, literally dormant inside your nervous system right now. Every authentic spiritual tradition points to this chai in Taoism, sekhem in Kaitic mystery schools, prana in yoga. Different words for the same biological and spiritual reality most modern seekers never experience because they're chasing sensations instead of awakening. Look, your spine houses a biological reality, ignored by science and miscommunicated in popular spirituality. The sensation ancients described as a serpent corresponds exactly to the sequential activation of nerve plexuses along your spinal column. When stimulated in the correct sequence, these nerve centers trigger cascading neurochemical reactions that radically alter consciousness. This ancient knowledge appears across cultures because they all recognize the same biological architecture. Chinese traditions called this energy chikimes, named it sekhem, and yogis termed it prana. Different words pointing to the same fundamental force that transcends physical existence while expressing itself through it. But here I'll challenge my own statement. Reducing Kundalini to mere biology misses half the truth. The biological component serves as the vehicle, not the essence. What flows through those neural pathways represents consciousness, recognizing itself in increasingly subtle dimensions. The real barrier to activation is your psychological blocks, which you have built since childhood. Your mind builds elaborate defense mechanisms that not only shape your personality, but physically alter your nervous system's functioning. These psychological patterns create the blockages preventing Kundalini from flowing. Naturally want-proof. Notice how emotional trauma manifests as physical tension in specific body areas. Those tensions aren't random. They follow the exact pathways described in ancient Kundalini texts. Your psychology becomes biology, and both impact consciousness, the cosmic joke of spiritual seeking now. For the humor in all this, we humans spend decades constructing elaborate psychological walls, then pay thousands to teachers claiming they'll help us break through them, while the fire burns within us, waiting for us to stop suppressing what comes naturally. The cosmic joke remains that what we seek through endless spiritual practices already exists as our fundamental nature, e.g. studies on scientific insights into Kundalini. Advanced meditators show distinctive brain patterns during K activation, increased gamma wave coherence across brain regions that normally don't synchronize when properly activated. The nervous system enters a rare balanced state between sympathetic and parasympathetic branches, creating what neuroscientists now call a non-ordinary state of consciousness. So how do you actually activate this dormant force? I'll give you a 3-step process that harmonizes all dimensions of your being. Step 1, neurological preparation. Your nervous system requires preparation before Kundalini can flow safely. Begin with slow, conscious movements of your spine while breathing deeply. Start at your sacrum and move upward segment by segment. Focus on relaxing each vertebral section as you exhale. Combine this with humming that creates vibration at the base of your spine, literally sending sound waves through your cerebro's spinal fluid. The specific frequency matters here. Aim for a deep tone that resonates at the base of your spine. This vibration helps dissolve calcium deposits and tension patterns that block energy flow for maximum effect. Perform this practice at dawn, when your nervous system naturally shifts from parasympathetic to sympathetic dominance. Practice this daily for at least 1 week before proceeding further. Most Kundalini accidents happen because people skip this critical foundation work. Your body needs time to prepare for the increased energy flow step. 2. Psychological release. Once your nervous system becomes prepared, address the psychological material blocking energy flow during meditation. Scan your body for areas of tension or discomfort. These represent emotional blocks stored in your tissues. When you locate one, breathe directly into that area while mentally giving permission to release whatever remains stored there. Use the phrase, "I now release all patterns that no longer serve me." While maintaining awareness on the sensation, this systematic clearing creates space for Kundalini to rise naturally. This process might bring up surreset emotions or memories that's normal and necessary. Each psychological block corresponds to a specific location along the Kundalini pathway. Anger often lodges in the liver and solar plexus. Fear typically resides in the kidneys, and lower back sexual trauma commonly affects the pelvic region. By addressing these emotions directly, you clear the path for energy to flow. If you value these insights into how Kundalini integrates biology, psychology and consciousness, give us a like and subscribe. I'm going to continue teaching methods that bypass conceptual understanding and connect you directly with your innate power. Step 3. Consciousness alignment. With your system physically prepared and psychological blocks addressed, the final step involves aligning with the consciousness aspect of the Kundalini. This counterintuitive technique employs surrender rather than force. During meditation, completely release all effort to make anything happen. Instead of trying to raise energy, focus on becoming the awareness that observes all experiences without identifying with any of them. Ask yourself who observes these sensations and rest in that observing presence. Paradoxically, this surrender allows Kundalini to activate more powerfully than any forceful technique. This step transforms Kundalini awakening from a personal achievement into a recognition of universal consciousness. Expressing through your form, the ancient texts describe this as becoming the hollow bamboo through which the divine breath flows unobstructed. Many spiritual teachings emphasize control and direction of energy. But the highest understanding involves allowing, rather than controlling, your individual will must step aside for the universal will to express itself through you. This represents the union of individual consciousness with cosmic consciousness that Kundalini ultimately facilitates. Now I'll question my own approach here. Someone might argue this three-step process oversimplifies a complex spiritual phenomenon that takes years to master. Valid point and partially true. These steps begin the process rather than complete it. Full integration can indeed take years. However, authentic activation can happen remarkably quickly when you remove the right obstacles. The time-consuming part involves integration, not initiation. Another valid criticism is this approach ignores traditional practices like specific mantras and mudras, to which I respond. Those techniques work excellently as supplements, but they often fail without the foundation laid by these three steps. Add traditional practices after establishing this framework, not before. A third objection might be, this approach seems too psychological and not sufficiently spiritual. Yet this division between psychological and spiritual represents a modern misunderstanding. Ancient traditions never separated these dimensions. They understood that purification of mind naturally leads to spiritual realization. Have you ever experienced spontaneous body movements, tingling at the base of your spine, or waves of energy during meditation? Comment below with your experiences. Understanding these preliminary signs helps track the awakening process accurately. The warning about energy shift deserves an explanation. When Kundalini activates, you might experience first physical symptoms, spontaneous movements, temperature fluctuations, tingling sensations, and changes in sleep patterns occur because the nervous system undergoes fundamental rewiring. Second, psychological effects, rapid emotional processing, the emergence of suppressed memories, noise, temporary identity confusion, and unusual mental clarity alternating with mental fog. These happen as psychological material stored in your body-mind system gets processed and released. Third, consciousness shifts, altered perception of time, spontaneous meditative states, dissolution of boundaries between self and environment, and intuitive knowledge arising without logical process. These represent consciousness recognizing its nature. Beyond individual limitations, none of these effects indicate something wrong. They signify successful activation, however, they can become overwhelming without proper preparation and context. The intensity varies based on your existing blockages and resistance. Some spiritual seekers chase Kundalini activation for the experiences missing, the entire point. The experiences represent side effects of a more fundamental shift in consciousness. Ironically, chasing experiences creates the very obstacle, preventing authentic awakening, the ego's desire to accumulate spiritual achievements after perfect practice. Your Kundalini awakening never arrives as a future event. The potential exists now as your fundamental nature. The practices remove what blocks your recognition of what already exists. Stop seeking outside self. What already burns within the most intense aspect of Kundalini is that despite being described as rising up the spine, it simultaneously represents a descent of higher consciousness into everyday awareness. This paradoxical movement creates the integration of heaven and earth, spirit and matter, consciousness and form that constitutes genuine spiritual realization. Consider this final paradox. The fire of Kundalini transforms everything, yet nothing fundamentally changes. You remain who you always were beneath the conditioning, only now you recognize it directly. The awakening destroys illusions without creating anything new. Truth emerges not through accepting theories about Kundalini, regardless of how sophisticated they sound. Truth comes through direct experience of your own consciousness as it unveils from potential to expression. All the power you seek already exists within you. Will you remove what blocks its natural expression?